Hello all, Miss Underwood here, and I'm going to be giving you your assembly this week. So, I hope that a lot of you have been out this week and you've been enjoying the glorious weather. With temperatures hitting a massive 33 degrees in London, you're really getting the sense that the summer is here. And in fact, we've had really good weather for much of lockdown. And this has been really great because it's meant that where possible, we've been able to get out into our gardens, into parks and getting some exercise and enjoying sort of the fresh air and the environment around us. And this year is actually on track to become one of the hottest, if not the hottest year on record. And it may or may not surprise you to know that the UK's 10 warmest summers have occurred in the past 20 years. So we've had a lot of really good weather in the last few years. But why is that? Well, I'm sure that many of you are aware that the world is warming up. And scientists predict that the global mean temperature, which means the average temperature, will rise somewhere between 2 and 10 degrees over the next century. And this might not sound like a huge increase, but it is actually going to have a massive impact, and it's already starting to. So again, I think that many of you would have heard of a young lady called Greta Thunberg who refers to this sort of phenomenon as the climate crisis. And what she's referring to here is the impacts that greenhouse gas emissions are having on our planet. And she and many other people see this as one of the main threats, if not the biggest threat, to our planet. And climate change has already taken effect. So our glaciers have shrunk, ice on rivers and lakes is breaking up earlier, plant and animal ranges have shifted, and trees are flowering sooner. And we can see that impact around us on a yearly basis. But if we look at the long-term effects of climate change, it's even more worrying. So as the earth warms up, rainfall patterns are changing and sea levels are rising. And these changes will increase the risk of heat waves, fires, floods and droughts. And this will impact on our drinking water, which will also impact on farming and means that it will lead to famine. Entire ecosystems are going to be lost, as coral reefs will disappear and certain species, like the one I've got on that slide here, are at risk of extinction. And really, sadly, the developed countries are the ones that are producing most of these greenhouse gas emissions. And yet it's the developing countries, the poorer countries, that are predicted to see the most severe effect of climate change. And this is because those countries have fewer resources, so therefore it's more difficult for them to adapt to these changes, and they really will feel that impact. So why has the world not woken up and done something about this? Well, recently we have been living through perhaps one of the greenest periods for some time, for some years. And that's really because of lockdown. And with less cars on the road and planes in the sky, air pollution has dramatically fallen. And actually the levels of harmful gas on some of London's busiest roads on average is half what it was before lockdown. And this is really important, especially at the moment, because air pollution is linked to diabetes, strokes, heart attacks, asthma, and more severe effects of COVID. So it's really important, as I say, especially at the moment, that we get this right and making sure that air pollution is as low as possible. And not only has this impact of lockdown and the reduction of air pollution been felt in London, but it's also been felt globally. So, for example, in China, carbon emissions fell about 25% over the first 4 weeks of when the pandemic started, as the authorities shut down factories and people were instructed to stay at home. And in the region of northern India, the locals reported for the first time that they could see the Himalayas for the first time in 30 years. So you can see that lockdown has had this dramatic effect on our environment. But can we keep this up? So Greta Thunberg is a great spokesman for many issues. And at the start of the coronavirus, she actually donated $200,000 to UNICEF to help children get through that crisis. And she's also talked more recently about the Black Lives Matters protest and talking about how society has reached a tipping point where injustices will no longer be ignored. So she is actually a really great spokesperson, as I say, for many different issues, but especially about climate change. And she also says that climate change is just as urgent as an issue as the coronavirus and needs to be dealt with by governments and politicians just as quickly. So will we emerge from lockdown a greener world? Will our environment have changed? Will it be sustained? Or will people just go back to their old habits and after the COVID crisis has passed, will we just go back to how it was before? Well, I think one thing that the COVID crisis has taught us is that we are really adaptable and capable of change. And there are really some green shoots that you can see that are starting to happen. So since lockdown began, bicycle manufacturing and shops have reported a huge boom in demand. So much so that at the moment, the waiting list to get a bike, some are saying, is up to January 2021, which is absolute madness. Now, I'm sure that's not for all bikes, but a few more popular ones. And it's predicted that on the road in the next year, that the number of cyclists on the London roads will increase by tenfold. So lots more bikes around, which is great to see. Also, we've got other changes that have taken place, perhaps controversially. The congestion charge was reintroduced again this week and increased. And that is so that Londoners are encouraged not to make those unnecessary car journeys or those necessary journeys around London. So perhaps we are on the brink of some change. Perhaps we are going to have sustained and long-term change to our environment. That's something I would like you to think about. What changes can we make long-term, particularly in our community? Hopefully we will all be back in September. And what I would like to see is make a greener community. And when I say community, I'm thinking about Hackney, but also the Bridge community, our school. What can we do to make our school greener? Because I agree with Greta, and I think that we do need to make these changes now. So I need your help. So I'd like you to discuss with your tutors and have a think over the next few days about what we can do when we come back to Bridge to make our community greener. Okay, I do hope that you will all get outside this weekend and that you will manage to enjoy that sunshine, and let's make the most of it and appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Bye-bye.